I know this much better place down the street. The girls are cleaner, the liquor ain't watered down.
Sure, and you get kickbacks.
Hey, man, I got 5 kids to feed.
Take him to the dentist.
In this episode, I'm talking about a great, hammy, and all-around Arnold-y movie, Total Recall. Made in 1990, it stars the Muscle Man himself, Sharon Stone, and Michael Ironside, among others. It's based on the Philip K. Dick short story, We Can Remember It For You, Wholesale. Philip K. Dick is the author of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which was also the source material for Blade Runner. In the movie, Douglas Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is a construction worker who continuously has dreams about being on Mars with a woman who is not his wife, Lori. Mars at this time is inhabited by humans and controlled by Vilos Cohagen, who mines valuable turbinium, which is a fictional mineral, while the rest of the humans are oppressed by his regime. Quaid decides to go to Recall, a company that constructs false memories for a price and has you relive them as though you actually were there.
Have you always wanted to climb the mountains of Mars? But now you're over the hill? Then come to Recall Incorporated.
This is a form of entertainment for the customer who is basically just recreating or creating some kind of experience so that they could live it out. Essentially, they're able to decide between several different options before they live out this memory that was never really there. Quaid decides he wants to experience being a secret agent on Mars on a secret mission. He decides he wants to meet a demure woman on his journey. After the specifications are put in, Quaid falls asleep to experience the memory. However, something goes wrong.
You blew my cover!
What the fuck is going on here? You can't do a simple goddamn double implant.
It's not my fault we hit a memory cap.
They'll be here any minute. They killed you
What the hell
all!
is he talking about?
Let me go!
He awakens thinking that he's in danger, trying to get out of the company Recall. The people at Recall try to calm him down and put him back to sleep. The problem with the whole scenario is he hadn't even been fully asleep and the memories hadn't been implanted yet before he awoke thinking he was a secret agent. Now, believing that his memories of being an agent were actually suppressed by Cohagen, they decide to wash their hands of the whole thing, erase his memory of being at the company, and send him home. On the way home, his old work buddy decides that he's going to kill him with several henchmen. Quaid, having now reactivated his abilities, ends up killing the men. When he gets home, his wife Lori, played by Sharon Stone, is waiting. He tells her the whole story, and she reacts by assaulting him. She reveals that their whole marriage was also a false memory, implanted as a ruse to keep watch over him. Quaid runs, pursued by Michael Ironside, playing Richter. After he escapes Richter, he's handed a suitcase with a recording and some supplies in it. When he plays the recording, he's actually surprised to find himself on the other end.
Now, whatever your name is, get ready for the big surprise. You are not you. You're me. No shit.
His real name, according to the recording, is Hauser, and he used to be Cohagen's ally and friend until he fell in love and abandoned the mission. In return, Cohagen messed with his head, making him believe that he was actually married to Lori and sent him back to Earth. Why did he send him back to Earth instead of just killing him? I'm not really sure. Plot holes. Quaid actually travels to Mars, and he gets to Venusville, which is a shantytown of sorts, with people living and being mutated by the pollution and radiation, even though there's a dome that's supposed to be protecting this shantytown. There are many mutated people here, with their eyes drooping, their skin is wrinkly, and there's even a woman with 3, well, you get the idea. Inside Venusville, he meets the woman that he had been dreaming about. The woman, whose name is Melina, thinks that he's still Hauser and working with Cohagen. Soon after, Lori comes with Dr. Edgemar, who's from Recall, who's trying to convince Quaid or Hauser, depending on who you think he might be, that he's actually still stuck in his memory and he's not able to come out of it unless he goes with them.
Sweetheart, I love you.
Right. That's why he tried to kill me.
No, I'd never do anything to hurt you.
Dr. Edgemore claims that he's just a projection, but when Quaid notices that he's sweating, something a projection wouldn't do, he actually kills him. In the process, he's captured until Melina saves him. He then kills Lori, and he and Melina escape together. The mutant population in shantytown Venusville is not very happy, as you might imagine, and they are actually forming a rebellion led by a man named Quado. The mutants bring Quaid and Melina to Quado, who reveals himself as actually being the younger brother attached to the man they're talking to. Quado has the ability to read Quaid's mind, who finds out that there is actually a ton of ice that is below the surface of Mars. This ice can be vaporized and turned into oxygen for everyone. However, this would destroy the turbinium in the process, ruining Cohagen's plans. When Quaid got to Venusville, he met a man named Benny. Benny tends to follow Quaid and Melina around, and you happen to see him here and there once in a while. He's sort of a minor character that doesn't really have a ton of parts and is in the background for most of the movie. Well, Benny, he's got 5 mouths to feed, and so he shoots Quado and reveals himself as working for Cohagen. The mutants are mostly killed, Quaid and Melina are captured, and before Richter executes Quado, Quado tells Quaid to start the reactor. Cohagen shuts off the oxygen in Venusville in an attempt to kill the remaining residents. Quaid and Melina are brought to Cohagen, who explains that Hauser actually came up with the idea of burying his memories behind this persona of Quaid to bypass the mutant's psychic abilities. Therefore, he could infiltrate the rebellion, root out all of the mutants, and destroy them. Ironically, that's exactly what happened. The plan went almost flawlessly, except for the fact that Recall had, in the process, reactivated his abilities early. Cohagen was actually the one helping him escape from Richter and his men. Cohagen tells his men to reset Quaid to Hauser and make Melina his subservient lover, but they escape, kill his men, and enter the mines. Benny comes flying through the wall, driving a drill, trying to kill Quaid and Melina. He's dealt with in short order. Richter and the remaining men follow them into the mines, but they outsmart them and kill them. Cohagen tries to blow up the controls to the reactor so that none of the ice will melt. Therefore, no breathable air will enter Mars's atmosphere. But when Quaid throws the explosives away, it blows a hole to Mars' surface, where Cohagen is sucked out onto Mars' surface and suffocates in gruesome fashion. Both Quaid and Melina are also sucked out, but not before Quaid hits the reactor button. The reactor shoots oxygen into the air, saving their lives. As the people look out onto a blue Martian sky, Quaid and Melina kiss. Quaid wonders if it was all a dream in the first place. What a wild movie. It's so 80s, 90s, with the wacky hairstyles, the funny one-liners, the wacky practical effects. There's a scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Quaid, is trying to get past security to get onto Mars, and they use this sort of camouflage, but it's done very bizarrely, where it's basically a huge woman who just keeps saying the same line over and over again, and then when that starts to falter, you see this very strange sequence of events. Similarly, Arnold's facial expressions in the movie are sometimes very subtle and other times so over the top that it looks like cartoonish. The other actors must have been told to go over the top in a similar way. Either way, I can't help but love this movie. It's got all of that wacky, zany, dystopian, but memory-bending sci-fi that clearly I love. It's got this occasional weird humor and funky imagery. Beneath the wacky aesthetic, though, there's an intriguing story. One that moves from scene to scene as you try to unravel the mystery of why this man dreamt of Mars in the first place. The story moves at a steady clip, which keeps you watching. Also, the theme of creating false memories for a customer so that they believe that they really experienced them was such an interesting way to approach memories and to approach this style of sci-fi. It's a unique perspective when it comes to memories and amnesia and a sort of cyberpunk implementation of them. Mars is very appealing in this movie as well, as it's space sci-fi combined with dystopian politics. The people are supposed to be the workers, and they're sort of oppressed in this situation that they can't control and they can't get out of. To go to Mars only to be mutated and suffer consequences at the hands of a corporation that does not care about its workers While it's on a different planet, that's a very relatable situation. Companies are sued all the time for waste management issues, mistreating its workers, microplastics in food, go on and on and on. So even though it's on Mars, I think it's very topical. My writing focus for this episode is talking about amnesia and how memories play into a story. Now, the fact is that someone waking up with no memory of who they are, where they came from, what their past is, and anything like that is actually very rare in reality. There's actually one story I heard on another channel on YouTube about a man who did wake up in a ditch and had no idea where he was, who he was, or why he was there. After almost a decade or over a decade of living this other life, he finally went on to Unsolved Mysteries and told his story. And at the end, his wife actually claimed him and they figured out what his deal was. The point is, in realistic fiction and in reality itself, this type of situation is exceedingly rare. However, in sci-fi, we can do all sorts of things to characters. We can give them memories and take them away. We can augment reality for someone's pleasure or pain. Or, as is the case with my novel, we can insert human memories into a machine's mind and bring the reader through the story as it learns more about itself. Now, Dr. Amelia Wong, who I talked about in my other episode, Time Enough at Last, is the leader of the Hub, a bastion of humans and machines living together. She uses tech that her father built in what's called the Automated Recall Chamber, or ARC for short. And this is used to extract memories from willing, and sometimes unwilling, participants. The purpose is generally to vet their moral character, whether it's humans or even machines who may be a little corrupted. Her father, Wang Lei Wang, never really wanted to use the machine as it's being intended in this novel because he felt that the wrongdoers in society would come forward on their own and confess their crimes. But Amelia had different ideas from a very young age. She uses the ARC to extract memories from humans and machines alike, and through this system discovers that VL-15 actually has these human memories for a specific reason. These memories belong to VL-15, but it's not really clear why or how that is possible. So as a writer, I use amnesia and memories to bring the reader along to discover what's going on as VL-15 discovers it. As the Exhumers and VL-15 are traveling across the wasteland, battling primal humans, errant machines, and vengeful artificers, it learns about itself along the journey. It returns to Terra 9, the machine city, to learn more about its origins. Amnesia in sci-fi, in my opinion, is more believable than realistic fiction because we can explain technology as a reason for why certain things happen. Memory extraction, disruption, and transference is more believable when you have technology that you can appropriately explain. I'd like to go more into hard sci-fi versus more accessible sci-fi. Maybe I'll do that in another episode. But essentially, as long as you can explain the technology in a way that is believable, it passes. In more accessible sci-fi, as opposed to hard sci-fi, it's going to be more about the creativity of the writer in explaining things in a believable way. Hard sci-fi tends to use actual calculations and descriptions of real machines or mechanical parts in order to explain things. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but what I'm trying to show is that accessible sci-fi means that as long as you can explain something in a creative way, people will believe it and they'll buy into the story because it's more exciting. I'm not an engineer, nor am I a scientist of any kind, but I find that when I'm creatively explaining technology or things in the world, as long as it feels believable and as long as there's some level of rationale to it, then people will buy into it and will want to read more because it's more about the story than it is about the technology. So, what did you think of this movie? Do you enjoy the 80s themes and overall silliness? And while you're at it, check out my novel series, A Spark in the Ashes. Right now, the vital link is in all major and minor outlets. If you do ever make it to Mars, let me know if it has a blue sky now. Otherwise, Quaid might be still lost in that memory.